Hi, A&P students. I want to do a quick video of some of the major concepts in that chemistry chapter. I know chemistry is not everyone's favorite topic, but let's try to break it down and just, get to the nitty-gritty of what you need to know about chemistry. So I'm going to share my screen. We're going to look at the PowerPoint notes that you purchased in the bookstore. So this is chapter 2 of Seeley. And so it's the chemical basis of life. And I'm going to do a really fast lecture with you on this. So that's why I'm doing this quick video with you as well. There's lots of videos in APR that you can view if you are, someone who needs a little more help with the chemistry stuff. Okay, so here is our cadaver dissection tool, meaning there is a video that goes along with this, but all I want you to know about an atom is stuff that you probably already know, that an atom is made up of protons, neutrons, and electrons. And so there's this dense nucleus where the protons and neutrons are all packed together. Protons have a positive charge, and electrons are floating in a cloud around that nucleus. The electrons have a negative charge. So when we're talking about atoms, we can talk about the periodic chart and the elements that are listed there. Elements are pure substances. They're composed of only one kind of atom. And let me give you a spoiler alert. The thing that distinguishes atoms from one another is how many protons they have. They are named for their number of protons that are in the nucleus. That's what makes them different from other atoms. So the number of protons distinguishes that atom from another, and the number, here's a big concept that's really important. The number of protons equals the number of electrons. If you're just talking about an individual atom that's not chemically interacting with anything, the number of protons is the same as the number of electrons, meaning all atoms by themselves are electrically neutral because neutrons don't have a charge. It sounds like neutral, doesn't it? So no charge on the neutrons. Okay, so this is just a picture from your book that you can look at when you get a chance. And some more terms. The atomic number is important. I've been telling you that's what distinguishes each atom from another atom. So it's the number of protons. The atomic mass is protons plus neutrons, and the atomic weight is an average weight because you have isotopes. So let's talk about, just the different atoms that are on the periodic table. Here's 3 of them. The very first one is hydrogen because hydrogen has 1 proton. It is element number 1 on the periodic table. Element number 6 is carbon. It has 6 protons. And then oxygen has 8 protons. Now, for some atoms, like carbon has the same number of protons and neutrons in the nucleus, but there are isotopes of carbon where the number of neutrons differs. So isotopes are atoms with the same atomic number, but they vary in how many neutrons they contain. That's why when we were talking about atomic weight, there, it's like the average of the different forms of each atom. So why are these important? Isotopes are important because they can be used clinically. Some of them are radioactive, like there's radioactive iodine, and there's, treatments that can use radioactive iodine on the thyroid gland. And actually they use it in imaging procedures where they're trying to get a picture of what's going on with the thyroid, because the thyroid is about the only place in the body that takes up iodine. So it'll take up this radioactive iodine, and then they can take an image of the thyroid gland after it's taken up the radioactive iodine, and then sometimes they give people radioactive iodine to kill off parts of the thyroid as well, treating them for thyroid cancer, and that's what my mom had done. Okay, so I am not going to talk too much about electrons and valence shells, but they are important. You'll get into it more in actual chemistry class, but there are different levels that the electrons can be found in. You can sort of liken this nucleus, if you want to think about, you know, the planets orbiting the sun, you've got the protons and neutrons all densely packed here, and then you've got electrons that are floating around in different orbitals, you know, just like the planets have their orbitals, and a moon has its orbital around, you know, a different planet. So anyway, the valence shells are important because they can help you predict how atoms are going to behave with other atoms. So all you need to know is the first, second, and third orbitals and how many electrons can be in there. The first orbital can hold 2 electrons. The second, which is further from the nucleus, can hold a maximum of 8 electrons. The third, which is further still from the nucleus, can hold a maximum of 8 electrons. And so let's look at the periodic chart and see if you can figure out which element on the periodic chart where the third orbital would be full in these atoms. And take a look. I'll give you a hint. 8 plus 8 plus 2 equals. Here's the periodic table. See if you can find an element that has a full outer or third orbital. 8 plus 8 is 16, plus 2 is 18. So did you find element number 18 on the periodic chart? This number in the upper left-hand corner is the atomic number. It's the number of protons. But what does that have to do with electrons? Well, recall earlier I said that all of these elements, all of these atoms have the same number of protons that they do electrons. So protons equals electrons. If you have 18 protons, that means argon also has 18 electrons, meaning it is electrically neutral. So number 18. And these, in this column right here, all of these atoms, their outermost orbitals are full, and these are the noble gases over here: helium, neon, argon, and so on. They're very unlikely to chemically interact with other atoms because they're full. Just like when you eat a meal and you're satisfied and you're full, you don't want any more food, so are the noble gases. They have a full outer orbital, and all of the electrons that can hold are in there, and so it is very unreactive. Chemical bond types, we have ionic bonds, which atoms end up donating electrons to other atoms. When these molecules dissolve in water, they form what are known as electrolytes, and a big example is sodium chloride. Covalent bonds, you have actual orbitals that overlap and electrons are shared. So these are quite strong, these bonds between atoms. And then you have hydrogen bonds. These are bonds between water molecules or hydrogen bonds within larger molecules like DNA. So this is a schematic of ionic bonding between sodium and chlorine. So sodium, let's go back and look at what element they are on the periodic table. Sodium is Na. Na is element number 11. Chlorine is element number 17. And if you use our math with the electrons and the orbitals, 2 electrons in the first level, 8 in the second, 8 in the third, this is what you see. They've drawn in the 3 orbitals, and so the first orbital can hold 2. So here's our 2 electrons for sodium. The second level can hold 8, right? And so sodium has 10 altogether in these 2 orbitals, and then it has 1 more in the outermost, but it's not really happy there. It's not happy with just 1 because atoms are only satisfied when their outer orbitals are full. And that means, when I say satisfied, I mean non-reactive. They just want to be left alone. Sodium does not like being left alone because it just it wants to kick out that extra electron. And it loves to donate it to chlorine because chlorine has 2 electrons in the first orbital, 8 in the second for 10, and then it has 7 out of the 8 it needs in the outermost orbital. So for sodium to pass off that electron to chlorine, gives sodium a net positive charge, and it gives chlorine a net negative charge because it's accepting an electron, which has a negative charge. And so these two are the perfect example of, like me and my husband, opposites attract. In many ways, my husband and I are opposites. So opposites attract, a positive to a negative. And then you have sodium chloride, which is just your basic table salt. Okay, that's the easiest example of explaining that atoms need to have their outer orbitals full in order to be happy and satisfied. And this satisfies sodium and chlorine. And then you make sodium chloride, which is table salt. Okay, so note when atoms bond this way, the number of protons no longer equals the number of electrons. That's why sodium gets a positive charge and chlorine gets a net negative charge. Okay, so here's more ionic bonding, kind of explaining that. What you need to know about table 2.2 for chemistry chapters, just know the abbreviations of these major chemicals: calcium, sodium, potassium, hydrogen. Hydroxide is OH with a negative, net negative charge. Chloride is Cl minus. So these are the electrolytes that are important in the human body. Okay, so we're going to talk about all of these at some point. Many of these, like the bicarbonate, the ammonium, the well, we'll talk about phosphate this semester, but some of these we don't talk too much about in fall semester anatomy, so we'll do more with them next semester. But just know the chemical abbreviations of these electrolytes. Okay, so covalent bonds, we said we're sharing. I am going to skip this because I'm going to skip ahead past the hydrogen bonds. Here's a hydrogen bond between two water molecules. This produces things like surface tension of water molecules and so on and so forth. The other important place we can see hydrogen bonds are where these dashed lines are. See right here? Probably a lot of you have seen DNA before, but DNA is a very large, complex molecule. And the bases that are attached to each other are attached via hydrogen bonds. And there's just millions of them in here, so it makes DNA extremely stable. Here's a comparison of the different chemical bonds that we just talked about, and that hopefully will give you a good idea about what you're up against in the beginning of the chemistry chapter. This enzymes are catalyst slide is where I'm going to end this video, and so this hopefully will help you out with the chemistry chapter.